Hey team, my name is Alan Perzewski, and today I would like to walk us through our plans for milestone 18.0. Looking at what we accomplished currently in 17.11, we delivered the epic for excluding packages from merge request approval policies for license approval rules, made some progress on scheduled pipeline execution policies, and delivered improvements for pipeline execution policy limits. And we also started collaboration with Verify on optional variable control, and I believe we have a good plan on how to proceed. For 18.0, we're focusing on delivering features that matter for our customers, but also doing some groundwork for our fiscal year Q2 commitments as we're just starting this new quarter. So let's take a look at the planning issue. Let's take a look at those priorities one by one. You can read more about the whole narrative for the 18.0 release in the issue, and I'll now go through each of those priorities. So first one is scheduled pipeline execution policies. So in 17.11, we made substantial progress on the front end and back end. We added snooze functionality and a bunch of other improvements that are getting us closer to the experimental release. And in 18.0, we're actually going to do the release, and it will be behind the experimental flag. For those that will be able and would like to test it out early, we need to have a documentation ready. We need to testing it, ensure that there are no critical bugs reported in the core functionality. And then we have a bunch of smaller improvements that we need to make, like on front end and also on the back end, ensuring that it's being listed in the policy list and many other things. So these are like our main goals in terms of this particular priority. And then going next to our optional variable control, as we are targeting release in 18.1, but first we need to get the reviews from Verify and ensure that the proof of concept that was already built is actually something that we would like to work on. We have some already customers that looking at the plans are excited, so I can wait also to deliver that. We need to focus in this milestone on the backend implementation, ensure that what we're going to deliver and ensure that what we are planning is actually how we're going to deliver it, and then ensure we have a good front-end plan. As we had some designs already, but we need to revisit them according to the backend implementation and ensure that it's accurate. So to do it and how we define success criteria for this particular priority, we have backend implementation ready. We have all feedback incorporated, so the more is merged and we can actually start using it. I believe the feature flag should be still behind, the feature should work behind the feature flag, and we should have a clear implementation plan on the front end. It would be ideally if we could start some front end already. But as I said, like the target release for the feature is 18.1, just for us to have some time to start testing it. And the next big thing that we need to start working on is centralized management of security policies, something that was previously called as the like how to manage your policies with multiple top-level groups. So to give us a quick overview, we have customers that have self-managed instances as organizations are not yet ready, but they would like to be able to enable some policies in centralized way for all of their projects. There's no simple way to do it currently. They would need to either have some script to do automation, or they need to manually select top-level groups and assign them to a single security policy project. So we need to find a better way to do it. For this quarter, we are aiming to do a beta of the solution. We already prepared, so here we have some plans. In the epic, you'll find some plans, example workflows, how we would like to see it. And then there's also architectural blueprint of what kind of components you're going to see and so on. Overall idea, and I believe it's also visible here, is that you will be able to select the group as your compliance security policy group, like a centralized security policy group. And then as you are designate that group, then this group manages policies and compliance frameworks for all your top-level groups for your instance. The compliance part and compliance frameworks and everything like that will be handled separately by compliance team. We will focus in our team on security policies only. So you would manage those policies normally as you currently do. The only difference would be that those policies that are defined for that particular centralized group will be applied for every single top-level group for that instance. And then you actually can define which project can be linked to, can be scoped to give it to policy by just selecting a proper policy scope. So you can read more about it in the epic itself that tells you more about it from the product perspective, but also you can go through implementation plan, and the most important part is this architectural blueprint that can tell you more about how the whole solution will work and how we're going to collaborate with compliance around that. So, but getting back to what we would like to achieve in this particular milestone, we need to have a backend proof of concept, um, being able to select the CSP project, and then ensuring that those policies are getting applied. That means we need to like take a look at the internal services that we're currently using at this additional level. You could think about it as instance level policies, essentially, but in more simplified way, because you would not have a specific front end built only for instance policies. You would manage separate group. And as we're going to continue with the proof of concept, in the end, we would like to get some assessment as how feasible it is, how impactful it might be to the performance, and so on. Some technical challenges that we need to identify and document. These are like things that will set us groundwork for the implementation, the future milestones. So we need to ensure that POC works, and then we have a clear plan how to solve problems that were identified during the POC. So mostly in this milestone, we're going to focus on the backend and this spike in particular. And then you have another exciting feature that many customers are asking us for, which is the exception bypass and merge request approval policies. During our next weekly meeting, Grant is going to tell us more about the overall idea, what we would like to achieve. He just updated the epic with some exciting designs, so you can see more. Overall idea is that as a user of policies, you would like to configure some special exception or bypass ability that would allow you to specify, okay, for some particular scenarios, I don't want to require approval. For example, one of the good examples, and customers are often asking us, is GitFlow. They have GitFlow, and as a part of GitFlow, you are doing one specific thing. As you finish working on the feature branch, you need to merge that feature branch to release branch, and then this release branch needs to be merged into your default branch. And this part currently with approval policies requires approval from you, because default branch is obviously a protected branch, and then when you create the MR approval policies, you need to specify. You cannot build your approval policies based on the source branch. So this will also be a part of this epic, but in the end, as you could see in the designs, you'll be able to specify in which scenarios you can add the exception when the policy is not applied. So it's either going to be a special user that does not require those, because you might have some automation and say, okay, for this service accounts or this tokens, I do not require approval. Or you can specify the waiver, a policy waiver, so that you're saying, okay, I would like to ask for exception, like please let me do it. And then you have like one-time exception that can be applied. This is all written down in the epic itself, so I recommend checking it out. So what we need to do, we will not build a POC. It's a really huge effort. So what we need to do instead is to prepare architectural blueprint for that initiative. The target release is kind of close. It's 18.2. We need to decide what kind of scope we can build within that time frame. We need to build architectural blueprint. We need to all agree on what we would like to achieve. And then as this is completed, because feasibility will be done from the backend perspective, we need to also to look at the front end and all designs that were prepared and see what things we can build, and we need to prepare those implementation tasks for the future milestones. And then we have another something new to policies, security policy audit events. We have maybe one or two audit events related to policies, but we need to improve that. So as I believe no one in the team has ever worked with audit events in the past, this is like perfect example of how we can learn on the way. So we have a spike with proof of concept for policy audit events, and we would like to get those findings, learn more about audit events and how to apply them. And as we're going to build some probably smaller not saying framework, but a module that will be able to easily apply to places where policies will utilize audit events. We're going to just use it and simplify audit events in the future. So for success criteria for this particular epic, we need to have a POC. We need to take a look at the current audit events that we currently have. We need to document them in the spike itself. We need to understand what we would like to achieve. And then in the end, we would like to have an implementation plan with phases so we know what we're going to build in the next milestone. Then we have a flexible scan execution policy trigger condition, which is kind of long name for something that's relatively simple. And Grant just prepared some simplified designs as we had lengthy discussions on how to properly approach it. So in the end, what we would like to do for customers is currently when you have scan execution policies and you'd like to ensure that they are working properly with your MR approval policies, you usually recommend to customers, okay, configure your scan execution policies to work on all branches. But it actually brings more costs to the infrastructure because you need to run pipeline with given scans every time you create a new pipeline. It's not really a perfect solution as you would like to be able to say, okay, I'm interested only in running those jobs only for pipelines that matters for me, which is default branch. And for example, MRs where I have code that I would like to merge into default branch. That's why the backend is more or less ready. So we need to focus on the front end scenario, which is some kind of wizard that will get you to that point. That's why we were thinking about adding this scan execution strategy, which is, okay, I don't want to do it manually. Just give me a strategy that will work in my scenario. MR approval ready, that will in the end create scans for both source branch and default branch pipelines. And then you can have comprehensive logic, and then it will work exactly like today. What you have for branch type target all, so to all branches in your project. And then you can also specify custom configuration that will get you to the similar place that you have currently to configure your own security policies, conditions when to run given scan. This is exciting, of course, designs might change, but in the end, we would like to simplify the UI workflow and help customers decide. So these are like our main things. As you see, it's like really groundwork. We need to start looking into them. We need to look into those particular epics and we need to understand if this is feasible, if there is a scope that we need to limit, we need to start those discussions now because these are committed epics for this quarter. That means we need to deliver them and we need to communicate if anything goes not according to the plan. And this is super important. That's why I emphasize that. Of course, as in every other release, we dedicate also some time to improve a bunch of quality issues. Now, it's either going to be some UX, smaller UX things in this milestone, or some smaller security issues, but we should not bother too much about them. These are like what we do in every single milestone. And then, as always, we're talking about say-do ratio. Apart from the task that I prepared for every team member in our team, I also added some written tasks that are not part of like some kind of issue because it requires different effort and I didn't want to have everything in issues. So these are like all smaller tasks that could be just a checkbox. And I know that some already started looking into those. Of course, there are some risks. As I mentioned, we have tons of epics. And we need to find a way to solve them all. So we need to carefully work on items that matters and in terms of those plan. So we should not be distracted by anything else. And then we're dependent in tasks that require verified team for feedback. We're dependent on them. So that brings us to risk. So we need to either we need to understand that, communicate early when we are blocked, and then we'll find solutions actually to those problems. In terms of release post items, we're going to focus on releasing scheduled pipeline policies as experimental. We have a documentation in MR already, and we're going to work on some smaller items. This is something that needs to be delivered till the end of this quarter, which is end of April 2025. And I will not go down to the calendar because I don't want to show when everyone is taking PTO. But important aspect is that milestone starts this Monday on 14th of April and will end on May 9th, the second Friday of the month. So to close it out, this is a very ambitious plan. I'm confident we are in our ability to deliver that, but please communicate if anything changes or you see a huge risk in that. And this is important for our customers and to satisfy those customer needs and set us up for the future success for our group. Fitting everything into this milestone was and will be challenging. So each DRI is responsible for preparing tasks, seeking assistance when needed. I rely on you and your independence, but please speak up if anything seems unrealistic. And I want us to communicate those changes early in the process. One important aspect uh, that is different from the previous milestones, and I forgot to add them early, DRI pairing and collaboration. As you can see, for every initiative that we have here, we have a DRI, but we also have backend backup DRI, which is the person that supports you during the implementation. So you're not the only one working on given milestone. There's like dedicated person that help you, because we have I believe around 4 or 5 initiatives. We have far more backend engineers that could jump in and help, and we need to utilize that. Previously, we were working on those epics individually, so one DRI was working on one epic. Now, as we have more focused effort on delivering those smaller amount of epics, we will have probably uh, two backend engineers and one front-end engineer working on one epic. But having two DRIs makes no sense, because it has to be an individual for the backend. So there's one individual and backup individual that can always help. So please, as DRIs, coordinate regularly, document progress, make knowledge transfer if needed, ask for help, and I hope you'll have a great 18.0 release. Thank you so much.